Hi guys, today we're going to talk about cube roots, and this has to do with the learning goal that says I can find and estimate square roots and cube roots and classify a number as rational or irrational. And it actually has to do with the second learning goal too, where we're talking about being able to solve equations that have a variable either raised to a second power or a third power. So remember yesterday we talked about the definition of square roots. And so today we're going to be extending that a little further and thinking about what are the definitions of cube roots and also of a perfect cube. A cube root of a number is just another number that when you times it by itself and then by itself again equals that first number. And if you think about a perfect cube, it's a number that is a cube of a whole number. Just like a square, a perfect square was a number that was a square of a whole number. And so these perfect cubes get large really fast, so you probably won't have very many of them memorized. Myself, I think I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 memorized. So there aren't that many of these to memorize. If you think about something like 2 to the third power, or 2 cubed, that's the same as 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And so over here on the left, if I'm thinking about the cube root, and that would look like this, I just write a little 3 above the root symbol to show that I'm taking the cube root of 8 equals 2. So the number that when you multiply it by itself and then by itself again equals that first number that I'm taking the cube root of. So how do we find cube roots? Think of this cube right here. This is a cube, and it has a volume of 64 cubic units. So what I want to know is, what is the length of each of the edges of this cube? And so how would I figure that out? Well, I need to know, what do we know about all the sides of a cube? So think about what makes this a cube. We know that they are all equal. And how do we find the volume of a cube? In order to find the volume of a cube, you do length times width times height, or in this case, you can think of volume as being one of the side lengths taken to the third power, because length, width, and height are all equal on a cube, just like we said up here. So what times itself 3 times equals 64? It's going to be a pretty small number. We know that 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8 from the previous slide. And so I could think about 3 times 3 times 3, but I don't think that that's going to be 64. What about 4 times 4 times 4? Well, 4 times 4 is 16. And if I take that times 4 again, I will get 64. So you can see that each one of these edges right here has to have a length of 4 so that I can get this volume of 64 cubic units. So then if I look right here, here's the cube root of 64. So that's again asking me what number times itself and then times itself again equals 64, and we now know that that equals 4. Here are 2 equations that have a variable raised to the third power. And when I want to undo taking something to the third power, I take the cube root of it. So in order to solve this first equation, x cubed equals 1/8, I'm going to take the cube root of both sides of my equation. So I'm just going to rewrite this, showing that I am taking the cube root of both sides. And so the cube root of x cubed is just going to be x. And the cube root of 1/8 is the same as taking the cube root of 1 over the cube root of 8. So I could rewrite this right here. And the cube root of 1 is just going to be 1, because 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And the cube root of 8 is going to be 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8. So if x cubed equals 1/8, then x has to equal 1/2. And for my second equation here, again, I need to take the cube root of both sides of this equation. So I'm going to take the cube root of x cubed, and I'm going to take the cube root of 216. The cube root of anything raised to the third power is just that thing, so I have x on this side, and then the cube root of 216 is probably 6 if I had to guess, and I could check that. So 6 times 6 is 36, and 36 times 6, 3 times 6 is 18, plus 3 is 21. So yes, the cube root of 216 is going to be 6. Obviously, that's one I don't have memorized. For my class, here are your free response and multiple choice questions. So go ahead and pause the video now to answer those 2 questions.